You have been eating vegetables your entire life. Your mother told you to eat them. Your doctor tells you to eat them. Every health article, every nutrition guide, every wellness program tells you the same thing. Eat more vegetables. And you do. You try. You fill your plate with the things you have always been told are good for you.
But what if I told you that after 60, 3 of the most commonly eaten, most widely recommended vegetables in the modern diet are actively working against your health, inflaming your joints, disrupting your thyroid, spiking your blood sugar, and triggering digestive distress that you have probably been blaming on everything, except the one thing sitting right there on your dinner plate? And what if I told you that 3 other vegetables, ones that most seniors dramatically undereat or avoid entirely because of outdated nutritional advice, are among the most powerful, most targeted, most evidence-backed foods available for protecting your heart, your brain, your joints, and your independence after 60? Today, I am going to show you exactly which 3 vegetables every senior must eat every single day, and exactly which 3 must be reduced or eliminated entirely, with the specific biological reasons behind every recommendation. Stick with me to the end, because what I share in the final section surprises almost every one of my patients, including those who considered themselves very knowledgeable about nutrition. I'm Dr. Victoria Wells, and in nearly 30 years of working with older adults, nutrition is the conversation I have more frequently, more passionately, and more urgently than almost any other, because food is not neutral after 60. The same vegetable that was relatively harmless at 40, that your digestive system handled efficiently, that your thyroid managed without difficulty, that your joints tolerated without complaint, can produce a very different effect in a body that has changed in specific and important ways over 6 decades of living. The gut microbiome changes, thyroid sensitivity changes, insulin response changes, joint inflammation thresholds change, and the vegetables that were simply part of a healthy diet at 40 can, in the wrong quantities and the wrong combinations, become genuine contributors to the exact symptoms: fatigue, joint pain, bloating, blood sugar instability, brain fog that my patients most desperately want to resolve. This video is not about fear, it is about precision, about understanding that after 60, the question is not just, is this a vegetable? But what is this specific vegetable doing in my specific body at this specific stage of my life? So grab a pen and paper, because you are definitely going to want to write this down. Let me begin with the first vegetable you absolutely must eat after 60. And this one tops my list, not because it is the most talked about or the most fashionable, but because the depth and breadth of evidence supporting its specific benefits for the aging body is unlike almost anything else in the plant kingdom. I am talking about spinach, and before you dismiss it as something you already know about, I want you to stay with me, because what most people know about spinach is a fraction of what spinach actually does for a body over 60. And the specific way it should be prepared and consumed to unlock its full power is something almost no one is doing correctly. Here's the myth I need to address immediately. Most people believe that spinach's primary value is its iron content. That spinach is good for you because it builds blood and prevents anemia. This belief, popularized decades ago, is incomplete to the point of being misleading. Spinach's iron is actually poorly absorbed in its raw form. The oxalic acid present in raw spinach binds to the iron and significantly reduces its bioavailability. But spinach's true superpower for seniors has nothing to do with iron. It lies in 3 other compounds: lutein and zeaxanthin for eye and brain protection, vitamin K1 for bone and arterial health, and nitrates that convert in the body to nitric oxide, the molecule that keeps your blood vessels wide, flexible, and freely flowing. Think of nitric oxide like WD-40 for your arteries. Just as WD-40 loosens stiff, rusted mechanisms and allows them to move freely again, nitric oxide relaxes the smooth muscle cells lining your blood vessel walls, allowing them to dilate. reducing the resistance against which your heart must pump, and improving blood flow to every organ in your body, including your brain and your heart muscle itself. After 60, nitric oxide production declines by up to 50% compared to younger adults, a decline that contributes directly to rising blood pressure, reduced exercise tolerance, impaired cognitive blood flow, and the progressive arterial stiffening that underlies cardiovascular disease. Spinach is one of the most concentrated dietary sources of the nitrates your body uses to restore nitric oxide production. A study involving adults over 65 showed that regular consumption of nitrate-rich leafy greens, including spinach, was associated with significantly lower systolic blood pressure, better cognitive test performance, and reduced markers of arterial stiffness compared to those who rarely consumed these vegetables. The critical preparation detail most seniors miss is this: lightly cooking spinach, steaming for 3 to 4 minutes, or briefly sautéing an olive. Oil reduces the oxalic acid content, improves the bioavailability of its magnesium and calcium, and concentrates the volume so that a meaningful serving is far easier to consume. 2 cups of raw spinach wilts to approximately 1/3 of a cup when cooked, meaning a single serving of cooked spinach delivers the nutritional equivalent of 6 cups of raw. Add it to your morning eggs, stir it into soups and stews at lunch. Saute it with garlic as a dinner side, or blend it into a smoothie at breakfast where its flavor is completely masked. Daily, consistently, starting today. The second vegetable every senior must eat, and the one that generates the most genuine surprise when I explain its specific benefits for the aging body, is cooked carrots, not raw carrots, cooked, and this distinction matters enormously for reasons that completely invert the conventional nutritional wisdom most seniors have been following for decades. Here is the myth that keeps most seniors eating raw carrots and missing their most powerful benefit. Most people believe that raw vegetables are always more nutritious than cooked ones, that cooking destroys nutrients, and that the less heat applied to a vegetable, the more goodness it retains. For some nutrients in some vegetables, this is true. But for carrots, it is spectacularly wrong. The primary beneficial compound in carrots, beta-carotene, the precursor to vitamin A that gives carrots their characteristic orange color, is locked inside rigid plant cell walls that the human digestive system cannot efficiently break open in their raw state. In raw carrots, the bioavailability of beta-carotene is estimated at only 3 to 4%. Cook those same carrots, steam them, roast them, add them to a soup, and the heat breaks down the cell walls, releasing the beta-carotene and making it available for absorption. Bioavailability rises to 39% or more. Add a small amount of fat, a drizzle of olive oil, a teaspoon of butter, and absorption increases further still. Because beta-carotene is fat-soluble and requires dietary fat to cross the intestinal wall efficiently, think of the plant cell wall like the shell of a walnut.
The nourishment is inside the shell, but without the right tool to open it, you cannot access it. Cooking is that tool for carrots. Without it, you are eating the shell and discarding most of the walnut. For seniors over 60, beta-carotene and its conversion to vitamin A is critical for 3 specific functions that decline with age.
Immune surveillance, the body's ability to identify and destroy abnormal cells and pathogens, eye health, particularly the maintenance of night vision and the protection of the macular region of the retina. And skin integrity, the maintenance of the mucosal barriers in the respiratory and digestive tract that serve as the body's first line of defense against infection. A study involving adults over 65 showed that those with higher serum beta-carotene levels, reflecting consistent dietary intake of bioavailable carotenoids, had significantly lower rates of respiratory infection, better preserved visual acuity, and lower levels of systemic inflammatory markers compared to those with lower levels. Practical daily uses: roast carrots with a drizzle of olive oil and a pinch of cumin at dinner. Add sliced cooked carrots to soups and stews at lunch. Blend steamed carrots into a morning smoothie with ginger and turmeric. Or simply steam a handful of baby carrots for 8 to 10 minutes and eat them as a warm afternoon snack with a small amount of hummus, whose olive oil content further enhances beta-carotene absorption. The third vegetable every senior must eat is one that has an undeserved reputation for being difficult to cook, hard to find, and slightly intimidating for anyone who did not grow up eating it regularly. I am talking about beets. And once I explain what beets do specifically for the aging cardiovascular and neurological system, I believe you will never let another week pass without them. Here's the myth around beets that keeps most seniors from ever trying them. Most people believe beets are primarily a sugar-heavy vegetable, that their natural sweetness makes them unsuitable for anyone watching their blood sugar or trying to maintain a healthy weight. In raw form, beets do have a relatively high natural sugar content, but beets are almost always eaten, cooked, and cooking reduces the glycemic impact significantly. More importantly, beets contain the highest concentration of dietary nitrates of any vegetable, even higher than spinach, making them the single most potent natural nitric oxide booster available through food alone. But beets have a second extraordinary property that is almost entirely separate from their nitrate content, and that property is their concentration of a pigment called betalain. Betalain is the compound that gives beets their dramatic red-purple color, and it is one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory and antioxidant compounds found in any food. Think of chronic inflammation in your body like a slow, persistent fire burning in the walls of your arteries, your joints, and your brain tissue. Most of the damage attributed to aging, arterial stiffening, joint deterioration, cognitive decline, is not caused by age itself, but by this chronic inflammatory process advancing unchecked over decades. Betalain is like a targeted fire suppression system. It does not suppress the immune system broadly, it specifically inhibits the inflammatory signaling pathways that drive the most damaging forms of chronic inflammation in the aging body. A study involving adults over 65 showed that regular beet consumption, specifically 2 to 3 servings per week, was associated with measurably lower levels of C-reactive protein, a primary blood marker of systemic inflammation, and with significantly better performance on cognitive processing speed tests, reflecting improved blood flow to the prefrontal cortex. Practical daily uses. Roast beets in the oven at 400 degrees for 45 minutes. Slice them and add them to salads with goat cheese and walnuts. Blend raw or cooked beets into a morning smoothie with apple, ginger, and a squeeze of lemon. Their sweetness makes them genuinely enjoyable. Add sliced cooked beets to sandwiches at lunch, or simply buy pre-cooked, vacuum-packed beets, available in most grocery stores, which require no preparation whatsoever and can be eaten straight from the package. Now, I need to share with you the 3 vegetables that seniors over 60 must significantly reduce or eliminate, and I want to approach this section with the same precision and the same evidence-based clarity that I brought to the vegetables I recommended. Because the goal here is not to frighten you away from vegetables. The goal is to give you the specific knowledge that allows you to make genuinely informed choices about the specific foods that, in the specific physiological context of your body after 60, may be producing effects you never attributed to them. The first vegetable I recommend seniors significantly reduce is raw cruciferous vegetables, specifically raw kale, raw broccoli, raw cauliflower, and raw Brussels sprouts, consumed in large quantities on a daily basis by seniors with any degree of thyroid dysfunction or thyroid medication use.
Here is the myth. These vegetables are universally celebrated as among the healthiest foods on the planet, and in many ways, they are. But they contain compounds called goitrogens,
specifically glucosinolates that convert to thiocyanates during digestion that interfere with the thyroid gland's ability to absorb iodine, the mineral it requires to produce thyroid hormone. Think of goitrogens like a key in the wrong lock. The thyroid has a specific uptake mechanism for iodine, a precise molecular lock that allows iodine molecules in and keeps other molecules out. Goitrogens fit partially into that lock, blocking iodine's entry without completing the function themselves. For a healthy thyroid with abundant iodine reserves, occasional raw cruciferous vegetables present no problem. But for a senior with hypothyroidism, estimated to affect 20% of women and 10% of men over 60, or for anyone taking levothyroxine or other thyroid medication, daily large servings of raw cruciferous vegetables can meaningfully suppress thyroid function, exacerbating the fatigue, brain fog, cold intolerance, and weight changes that hypothyroid seniors already struggle with. The critical nuance, and this is what most people do not know, is that cooking cruciferous vegetables deactivates the goitrogenic compounds almost entirely. Steaming broccoli for 5 minutes, roasting cauliflower, or cooking Brussels sprouts reduces their goitrogenic activity by 60 to 90% while preserving the vast majority of their other nutritional benefits. A study involving adults over 65 with hypothyroidism showed that replacing daily raw cruciferous vegetables with cooked versions produced measurable improvements in thyroid hormone levels within 8 weeks without any change in medication. The message is not to eliminate these vegetables. It is to cook them consistently if you have any thyroid concerns, and to limit raw consumption to small amounts rather than making raw kale salads or raw broccoli a daily staple. The second vegetable seniors must significantly reduce is corn, and specifically the sweet corn and corn-based products that appear not only as a vegetable at dinner, but hidden throughout the processed food supply in forms ranging from corn syrup to cornstarch to corn-based fillers in packaged foods. Here is the myth. Most people think of corn as a vegetable, something wholesome and natural that has been part of the human diet for thousands of years. And traditionally prepared corn, in modest amounts, is indeed part of a balanced diet. But the sweet corn consumed in modern Western diets, particularly the varieties bred for maximum sugar content, has a glycemic index of approximately 73, nearly identical to white bread. For a senior over 60 whose insulin sensitivity has declined and whose blood sugar regulation is already less efficient than it was at 40, a single large serving of sweet corn produces a blood sugar spike that rivals a serving of white rice, fueling the insulin surge, the inflammatory cascade, and the glycation process that I have described in detail in other videos as among the most significant dietary contributors to accelerated aging, cognitive decline, and cancer risk. The practical recommendation is this: limit sweet corn to 1 small serving per week at most. Choose traditional stone-ground corn products over highly processed corn derivatives when corn is consumed. And read labels on packaged and processed foods specifically for corn syrup. High fructose corn syrup, cornstarch, and corn-based fillers, which appear in an astonishing proportion of packaged goods and deliver the same glycemic impact as the whole vegetable. The third vegetable seniors must significantly reduce, and this one generates more controversy and more pushback than almost any other recommendation I make is nightshade vegetables consumed in large daily quantities by seniors with inflammatory joint disease, specifically osteoarthritis or rheumatoid arthritis. The nightshade family includes tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, and white potatoes, all widely consumed, generally celebrated as healthy, and yet containing a class of compounds called alkaloids, specifically solanine and capsaicin, that insensitive individuals, particularly those with existing joint inflammation, can amplify the inflammatory response in synovial tissue, the tissue lining the joints. Think of alkaloids like kindling on a fire that is already burning. For a person with healthy, non-inflamed joints, a daily serving of tomatoes or peppers adds nothing concerning to their inflammatory load. But for a senior whose joints are already inflamed, whose synovial tissue is already producing elevated levels of inflammatory cytokines, adding A daily chemical stimulus that amplifies that production is like adding kindling to a fire you are trying to put out. A study involving adults over 65 with confirmed osteoarthritis showed that a 4-week elimination of nightshade vegetables produced measurable reductions in joint pain scores and inflammatory markers in a significant subset of participants, with the response being highly individual, affecting some participants dramatically and others not at all. The practical recommendation is not a permanent elimination, but a 4-week trial. Remove tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, and white potatoes from your diet completely for 4 weeks and monitor your joint pain and stiffness carefully. If you notice meaningful improvement, nightshade sensitivity is likely contributing to your symptoms, and permanent reduction is warranted. If you notice no change, nightshades are likely not a significant factor for you individually, and you can reintroduce them without concern. Now, I want to share with you something about timing that most people, even those who are already eating the right vegetables, completely overlook. For years, we believed that the timing of vegetable consumption within a meal was irrelevant, that a vegetable eaten at the beginning of a meal was nutritionally equivalent to the same vegetable eaten at the end. But research now shows that eating vegetables first, before your protein, before your carbohydrates, before anything else on your plate, produces a dramatically different effect on your blood sugar response to that meal than eating them last. When fiber-rich vegetables are the first food to enter your stomach, they form a physical matrix in the stomach that slows the emptying of all subsequent food into the small intestine, slowing the absorption of sugars and starches from the rest of the meal, and blunting the blood sugar spike that would otherwise occur. Think of it like lining a funnel with a fine mesh screen before pouring liquid through it. The liquid, glucose, still gets through, but it gets through more slowly, more evenly, without the dramatic surge that damages blood vessel walls, feeds cancer cells, and triggers the insulin cascade.